Hello and welcome to the next Sarasalandcast. I am your host, Real Zero, and we're talking about kind of another heavy subject as well. And I think I should have prefaced the other one where I talked about Metroid and um, uh, Metroid and the inherent sexism of Nintendo. But but yeah, I wanted to record that one first, and I should have prefaced it with or preface it with kind of a heavy thing. But I wanted to talk about this and let's get started. Um, so um, so when Star Wars: The Last Jedi came out, it was a really confusing time for me because the it said the critics really loved it and the audience hated it. And then I asked a couple of friends as well, and they said it was okay. It was a I remember specifically one of my friends said I think it was a pretty like solid movie, but other than that I never watched it, so that's or sorry, I should have said that originally. I have never watched it initially, and so I didn't know the whole why people were considering it to be bad. I think when it finally went on Netflix, 'cause, I don't think Disney Plus had it, or Disney Plus was the thing yet. Um, but when it finally arrived on Netflix, and I think I sat down and watched it. Um, I we finished it, and I was just gonna say, y'all need to grow up, cause it's not even that bad. Like people, do so many like mental backflips to say that like, oh, it's bad because of this, and it's just a movie. Like, why do people get so upset about that? And the real reason to get upset is that part of the ire was that, or part of the community's ire was that so much of it was directed at Kelly Marie Tran, the Asian woman that played Rose Tico, or like Finn's buddy when they were off going to basically, Cloud City slash Canto Bite. And it's unfortunate because I don't understand where, a huge portion of this racism comes from. When they say like, oh, I don't like that character, right? Um, that's kind of hard to say when a large majority of people went after this woman and caused her to, go, uh, not be on Twitter anymore, and that's unfortunate because that's not saying I don't like that character. There's a deep seated issue in their mind, or not in their DNA or whatever, but or maybe it's their DNA. I don't know, but there's a deep seated issue in their mind that they can't deal with, and so they take it out on victims, or they take it out on someone online. Whether it doesn't matter who, they just can't deal with it like a normal person, so they turn their aggression somewhere else. So why I bring this up is because I don't get why people are so racist to Asians in Star Wars, because Star Wars owes a lot of stuff to Asians, and we never bring it up because not that we're proud or anything. It doesn't make sense to bring it up. But I almost feel that I want to bring it up because there's a difference for cultural appropriation. There's a difference between it really inspiring you and you appreciate the culture, or just stealing it because it's cool. Like it's almost like, and I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack or heat for this, but I almost consider it's like the Kitty Pryde effect, or like, having a character where they initially have their powers right, but they don't know how to make them a more interesting character or have better characterization. So they give her ancillary objects that make her more wacky and more relatable. So, like, Kitty Pryde has a purple dragon for some reason. Kitty Pryde has these katanas, right? Because, sure, why not? I don't know what else. Oh, yeah, Kitty Pryde gets married to Colossus. Why not? And lastly, Kitty Pryde is a pirate. Just, why not? Like, that's one of the shallowest reasons to add a characterization, because you don't know how to write. You just add some zany effect so that you just you just, in general, a lot of people don't know how to write. So why I mentioned that Star Wars owes a lot to Asians is because, like, the word Jedi just straight up just comes from a word in Japanese called, Jidaigeki, or period drama. That's what the word means. It comes from the term that Akira Kurosawa, that's what majority of films were. They were samurai epics, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, but I want to say it regardless, is Samurai 7 and, Hidden Fortress, and that's where a big majority of those, influences came from. So Jidaigeki, it's Jidai, or it's Jidai Geki. So there's all the letters required for Jedi in that word. So, and even for the old movies, if you really, like, look at the small details, it's like there's some, like, ancient, so there's some ancient master of the Force named Yoda, and Yoda kind of sounds mysterious and Far Eastern and such. And what else, like, when, and Darth Vader kind of looks like a samurai, and when they fight in the old movies, it's kind of like the they take calculated strides, like the old samurai movies. So it is really like they just copy and pasted a lot of things from Asian cinema, and just made it in the Star Wars space opera. They probably added the space so that they want to be copyrighted, as especially so. I know there's like a million characters also with Asian influence names, and like one of my favorite characters, Asajj Ventress, right? Her name is directly tied to another Kurosawa character. The Kurosawa character is called Asaji the Assassin, and, like, that's very transparent, right? Like, it's just like you just move the letters and just added another letter so that you weren't seeing copying and pasting. So, but yeah, there's it's tons of characters that in makeup or puppets or animatronics, and but I'm just gonna list, like, the characters that in the originals, in the prequels, and in the sequels, so that just not just from the influences, but just to show that Asians are indeed part of the Star Wars universe, instead of them being targeted. And it's just awful, because like, if there's something clearly inspiring in a universe, and, like, okay, like, another thing too is, like, I think why, in a sense, Darth Vader looks like a samurai, right? but then he's evil is also something that was inspired by, because George Lucas was inspired by not just the Kurosawa films, but they was also inspired by, um, what's it called? By Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon is almost the same template for Star Wars in a sense. If you consider that Flash Gordon and Luke are kind of generic white guys, they don't have too much going on. And then the villain is some obscure or is some Asian guy, I guess. His name is Ming the Merciless, so some ancient evil yellow apparel guy. So, but yeah, it's really transparent that when you hear the influences and you look at all the stuff, it's really like, if you're like, I hate the fact that, like, again, like George Lucas and Mark, or any other like Star Wars celebrity, did it world was like, that's kind of messed up that Kelly Marie Tran is getting targeted and such. Like, George Lucas at the very least should have came down on these guys and been like, I didn't create this Star Wars movie for you geeks. I created it just because I wanted to create a movie. So, let go of it. And, or not there's a lot of people that make a movie, but again, like, it's really like, people, get so attached to something and then they want to ruin it for everybody else. And it's just absolutely, awful. But yeah, sorry, what I was getting severely off track. I wanted to talk about the characters in the live action films that are definitively Asian, and they have so many Asian influences, but then all the Asian characters are just like kind of blink and you'll miss it type things. So starting from episode 7, there are the Klingon guys. Their names are Tasu Leech, their leader, and the names of the thugs are like Razu Kin Fi and Kroken Shand. Their gang is called Kanja Club, which, yes, Kanja Club, you see it, ha. And these are real names. And they sound goofy to me, so why I categorize these guys as Klingon? Because they look like Klingons from Star Trek. The best guess is because it's cross-contamination from J.J. Abrams, who worked on the Star Trek movies previously, so you can blame J.J. Abrams. And then the next one from episode 7 is Jess Pava. She's a pilot for the Resistance and member of Blue Squadron. I know Jess is not the first Asian pilot or the first woman pilot, but she's still excited. But it was still exciting to see her be the first Asian woman pilot in a Star Wars movie. Just one of the pilots from episode 7, and they removed her from subsequent movies. So yeah, what gets me so irked about that is because it's like, they keep the stupid fat white guy from Heroes as a pilot, and he basically does nothing, and then he dies in the last movie. So yeah. So the next character too is Paige Tico, a pilot for the Resistance and part of a bomber squadron. Paige dies early on the movie to motivate Rose to action. So Paige basically serves as, Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, or Batman's parents, or, for Star Wars example, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru in the episode 4 movie. And then next is Rose Tico, a mechanic for the Resistance and later Resistance Command. A character that is the first Asian woman main character in a Star Wars movie, which is exciting. Like, that's great, but at the same time, like, but at the same time, like, it's just unfortunate that, like, so many people turn their ire to this woman, and I don't get it. Like, if you love Star Wars so much, why are you targeting, like, it's the same thing with, or almost the same thing with, like, Jar Jar Binks. Like, why would you make someone feel so shitty? Like, what is directly wrong with you? Is it something if you're just a hateful person, or is there something legitimately wrong with you? So, or never mind, I shouldn't even defend that. Like, if you're a hateful person, why are you that way? So, just, it doesn't make sense to me why you go out of your way to make hell for a person that's, that doesn't even have a influence in your life. So, anyway, moving on. We have next Chirrut Imwe, a blind warrior mystic that knows about the Force but can't use it. He joins Jyn Erso's mission to steal the Death Star plans. I think it's almost stereotypical for Donnie Yen. I don't like Donnie Yen, specifically, not just because of the Ip Man movies, but I just don't like him in general. But why I didn't like the character so much, he's kind of cool in like a concept way, but it's kind of almost like annoying that he's some like mystic that uses the Force, but he's not a Jedi and he doesn't have a lightsaber. So, like it just kind of like oh there's an Asian guy, but he's the stereotypical like ancient grandmaster or whatever, but he knows about the Force. Oh, but he can't kind of use it, and then he gets wrecked, and he doesn't have a lightsaber because apparently being mystic and Jedi don't and having a lightsaber don't coalesce. They don't work together. So the next character that might be Asian or again Pacific Islander, is Baze Malbus, a rebellion commando and friend to Chirrut. He also joins Jyn Erso's mission to steal the Death Star plans. I liked Baze or Malbus or whatever how to correctly say his name, or not says his name, but say the name. But again, I think it's one of those things where I seriously I liked him at first because he wasn't a stereotypically Asian stereotype. He was something different where he's some heavy gunner type guy, but he also gets wrecked. So it's kind of a moot point of being represented. So the next one is Queen Amidala, leader and ruler of Naboo during the Clone Wars. Darth Vader's romantic love interest. And I know it's Natalie Portman who's playing the character / Keira Knightley, but at the same time, I kind of think it's messed up that it's like this clearly looking like an Asian woman or a geisha or something like that falls for the main character, a generic white guy, and yeah, that doesn't sit well with me at all. Again, yeah, sure, there's scenes with Natalie Portman just normal, but it kind of just it seems so insane to me that there's so many it seems so insane to me so many Asian influences. And again, there's not a significant Asian character on screen. It's kind of almost like with DC and Marvel, and we're going to get to those eventually, don't worry about it. But anyway, what I was going to bring up is the last two characters that I've not seen when watching the movies, but from research, I've seen the second guy, but I haven't seen the first character I'm going to mention. There's another Asian character called Boltar Swan. As far as I can tell, they're the first Asian Jedi in a Star Wars movie. And again, she's a blink and you'll miss it in the background character movie. And again, you will probably miss her because there's so many characters during that scene. And even if she's with the foreground with all the heroes like Mace Windu and Obi-Wan and and Anakin, it's still hard to tell because there's so many characters. Again, the next character is Eckhart Young, and kind of I can't kind of believe it that Young is almost an Asian name, so figures. But it's again, it's kind of hard to they could be an Asian character, but they don't have to be. They don't have to be Rice Cellar Man or I don't know Chopstick Choi or oh my god, Chopstick Choi sounds awful. And or uh, like basically sound like a Marvel villain or a comic book villain, and just like be like, yeah, this exists. It's like some of the other like DC characters that they like try to like never that they'll never bring up, but like they happen regardless. But anyway, Ecclehart Young, he's a rebellion B-wing pilot during the attack on the second Death Star, and I swear you only have like 6 seconds. Another blink and you'll miss it like cameo, and like yeah. So and I swear like he's just labeled in the old Star Wars games or the old Lego Star Wars games B-wing pilot. Like I get it. Like again, he's like there for 6 seconds, but it's nice that like I'm even surprised that he got a name in the credits. Like I figured he would just be labeled again, B-wing pilot, but no. Like he has a name in the credits for episode 6. So that's something versus nothing. So but again, not specifically what I wanted to bring up is that there's so many Asian influences in Star Wars, and there's not an Asian character for Star Wars that that is universally liked. Again, like I was saying, is that and it just seemed like they really wanted to push for an Asian character to be likable and had an on-screen role, and then most importantly to sell merchandise. And again, like I was saying, it's hard to say all the extended universe characters because there's a lot too that either have an Asian influence name or are Asian. Like Sabine Wren, she clearly looks Asian, or Iden Versio, who clearly looks Indian or Latino, or I mean Latina, or could be African American too. It's hard to tell, and what they were going for with that. And but again, like it just seemed like they were on a push to have not affirmative action, but just to have more Asian personalities, so that that they could sell more merchandise. So what I was gonna say is that and I don't know how long I'll be able to talk about it, is that same thing with DC and Marvel, is that DC and Marvel has Asian characters, but again it's like it's another like they were created just to be affirmative action. They have no higher role in the greater universe, and it's kind of jarring that like same thing where it's like Superman, there is no like Asian characters, and then Batman. The funny thing with Batman, they have Katana, and Katana is technically was from a Batman comic, so or almost like because it's Batman and the Outsider, so and then Cassandra Cain is another Asian character, so and again they like I was saying, is that they're part of these team comics most of the time, but they rarely have series that that they'll get, and they'll like what I'm getting at is that Captain America, he has tons of series. Iron Man, he'll have tons of series. And then that's kind of it. A lot of other characters will not have series, and that's kind of telling. And a lot of times they'll probably get a series every now and then, but again, like there's not a guaranteed thing. There's not a guaranteed thing for to be argued that they'll get the that there'll be a writer and artist ready to create the next series. It's and that's kind of something where it's like where instead of creating something just to create something, there needs to be people that you definitely definitely be like, yeah, I'll write a story for White Tiger or something like that, or I'll write like 50 issues of I don't know, Hellcat or something like that. Like that, like again, there is a Hellcat series, but I don't even think that went as long as 50 issues or something like that. So it's probably only a 10 or like 6 issue series. Anyway, what I was gonna get at is that comic comic writers are really transparent about how like and it's really telling when you see like, oh, Action Comics have 1,000 issues or Detective Comics have 1,000 issues, and you're like, well, what about the other characters? Like, I really I really want a series about this character, and then there's not a or there's not a new writer that specifically will write that issue because they want to write it, not because they are contractually obligated to write it. So, but yeah, what I was gonna say is that again, like with DC and with like Super Friends, there was an Asian character before Cassandra Cain and Katana, and they're just the dude's name's Samurai. He has a top knot. He's not great because they didn't bring him back for anything. Same thing with like the other like affirmative action characters like El Dorado and Apache Chief and yeah, that's about it. Like they're just there for spectacle, and it's just really telling to me. Like 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 DC and Marvel, like this year or last year, they brought out the DC Festival of Heroes, and I think it was Marvel Voices Identity or whatever for the Marvel version of here's all these Asian characters, or hey, here's all these Asian characters, and we're only gonna write one story, and we won't tell you how many pages are the story, and yeah, and this is all you're gonna get, and yeah, it's really telling because what was even more irking is about that Asian or Festival of Heroes type thing is that like Cassandra Cain got like 12 pages, and I'm going like, okay, and then Katana got 7 pages, but it's really telling that I feel like the writer or the production company was not very comfortable writing the Katana one, because it's very telling that that Katana teams up with Cyborg, a black guy, and Blue Beetle, a Mexican guy. So they didn't even want to team up a white guy to be like, here's somebody that can, could be like, just be like, oh, this is a white person's problem, so kind of have them deal with it instead of like that's the realest thing about like Cassandra Cain's story was kind of almost was trying to be an original story and kind of be interesting, but Katana's story is about real world issues, and they weren't comfortable writing it probably, so that's why it's probably only 7 pages. Again, there's another story that they made about a new character that I have no idea about what happens to them. They probably have comics, but again, like, I wouldn't know otherwise. They've released some character called Monkey King, but at the same time, I was not interested reading about it. And they had a like another Catwoman story in the Festival of Heroes where they gosh, what's it called? Where she's training a new character. Her name is Shoes, and she's Asian as well. So that was kind of interesting. But again, like, it's the same time where it's like they're only gonna like do this. They're not gonna have like a whole like series about said character. Same thing with Marvel, where Marvel is, and same thing with Batman, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna learn all these Asian martial arts, and there aren't any Asian characters. It's the same thing with Star Wars, where there's going to be a lot of Asian influences, but they're not Asian characters. So it's kind of a moot point. Same thing with Marvel, is that Marvel will have Wolverine, yucking it up in Japan, and then they're not going to have Asian characters be at the forefront. And same thing with like X-23, where or X-23 saw Psylocke, there's clearly, aspects of them being possibly Asian characters, and or it's really telling where you see like Psylocke, where she's like the only Asian like telepath, and she's not an Omega level mutant. They never clarified that she's an Omega level mutant. There's like 5 other telepaths that are just equal, that are super boring, and they're all like Omega level mutants, like Emma Frost, Emma Frost, Phoenix, Franklin Richards, and I don't really care about Omega level mutants because that's a category that doesn't really make sense. If Phoenix is all powerful, then why can't Psylocke be? Why is Emma Frost all powerful but Psylocke isn't? See, that's another thing of like clarity that they didn't, and they kind of go like they kind of try to work that back. We're like when Storm was admitted as an Omega level mutant, like maybe a couple of years ago, because they were like, oh, they're Omega level mutant in their field, which like they were like, oh, so it's just like they walk that back and say, oh, in their field, right? Oh, I get it. So you don't have to say this is just complete and utter bullshit and doesn't mean anything. Like that to me is like the most like level writing that doesn't make sense when you create power tiers, and why. Okay, if Goku was Super Saiyan God and Vegeta couldn't be Super Saiyan God, why couldn't he? See, this is the thing where writers have so many, or I'm gonna say bad writers have so many problems where they they write themselves into a corner and they can't obviously like deal with it, and so they just they just keep digging that hole. Like another thing too, which is really telling, is that gosh, I can't think of his name. Sunfire. Yeah, Sunfire is also related to Mariko, the woman. Is related to or Sunfire is related to Mariko, which is like one of Wolverine's romantic love interests in Japan. But also Mariko is also related to Silver Samurai. Like it's that thing of like, oh, they must know each other, right? Like, and it's even more baffling that they're related to each other. Like that just doesn't make sense to me, and it's just like, okay, like why are you so bad at writing? Like, can you explain to me this Chris Claremont or Lin Wein or and the funny thing is, when you look at all those guys that wrote all the stories, just just a bunch of white old guys, not not too typically different. So yeah, I just it's one of those things where it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I've started to stop buying comics as of late because I'm going like, well, I'm not interested in. I don't want to buy Detective Comics, 1,000, or I don't want to buy Iron Man's 50th anniversary or whatever, because it doesn't really matter. It's just it's the same bureaucracy that they've been pushing for eons, and even when you do this, or even when they commit to something, they don't commit to something for more than tons of years. Like what I'm really getting at is that there's not a ongoing Storm series with like a million issues. There's not like a Kitty Pryde issue with like a millions of issues. There's not there's not an Armor or like Surge, and even though those characters were created in the 2000s, like it'd be nice if like they actually had a consistent ongoing issue like in the hundreds or thousands, or something to to say that, oh, we actually tried, instead of, oh no, we didn't try at all. So this has been the Sarasalandcast, and I'm your host, Zero, signing off.